In the shadowy corridors of Hollywood's golden age, there existed a group of defiant figures that etched their names into history. They were called the Hollywood 10. Who were they, really? Well, they were the creative minds, the screenwriters, directors, and producers who stood unwavering in the face of political turbulence, a defiant glare against the stifling Red Scare. Summoned before the House Un-American Activities Committee, they chose defiance over compromise, their audacious refusal to cooperate marking them as unfriendly witnesses. The consequences were severe, a swift and ruthless blacklisting by the Hollywood studio system that left their careers in ruins. We would be discussing some of the Hollywood 10 and some other Hollywood stars whose careers were ruined by politics. Lena Horn. Anyone who knew Lena Horn knew that she was someone who spoke her mind and damned the consequences. As she ventured into the world of cinema, little did she know that her outspokenness and political affiliations would become a thorn in her side, ultimately leading to her exclusion from the studio system during the turbulent 1950s. Imagine the heartache of being so close to your dreams, and yet having them cruelly snatched away. Lena Horn was on the brink of stardom, but her vocal support for causes that ruffled the feathers of the Hollywood elite led to her being blacklisted. It was as if the silver screen she aspired to grace had turned its back on her. Lena's life suddenly turned upside down, and she now had to start from the scratch, all over again. However, Lena Horn was not one to be defeated by the whims of the industry. In a remarkable act of resilience, she returned to her roots as a nightclub singer. This was her phoenix moment, rising from the ashes of rejection. She used this time to refine her craft, transforming herself into a captivating performer and a symbol of strength for those who faced similar adversity. As the years rolled on, Horn's career took an unexpected turn. She became a fixture on television variety shows, captivating audiences with her charisma and artistry. It was almost as if her blacklisting had inadvertently launched her into the hearts and living rooms of millions of viewers across the nation. But Lena Horn's story isn't just one of personal redemption, it's one of principled dedication. During the 1960s, a tumultuous period in American history, Horn emerged as a shining beacon of the civil rights movement. Her passion for equality and justice made her a prominent figure, not only on the stage but also in the fight for a more inclusive society. So while the Hollywood studio system may have rejected Lena Horn, it couldn't extinguish her star. Her journey from the glitz and glamour of the silver screen to the passionate advocacy for civil rights made her one of Hollywood's unforgettable stars. Lena's legacy continues to shine brightly, reminding us that true stars are those who stand unwaveringly for what they believe in, even in the face of adversity. Orson Welles. He was the enigmatic genius of Hollywood, but he found himself caught in the web of political intrigue during an era when the Red Scare was in full swing. Although his journey may not have mirrored the overt blacklisting that many artists faced, his career took a covert turn, influenced by the same current events. Here's how it all happened. Welles's defining masterpiece, Citizen Kane, was a cinematic triumph that raised eyebrows and ruffled feathers in the political landscape of its time. However, the film's thinly veiled critique of media mogul William Randolph Hearst, a noted anti-communist figure, was enough to draw the ire of those who saw conspiracy in every shadow. To the powers that be, the audacity of a young and innovative filmmaker taking on one of the most powerful men in media, subtly challenging the status quo, was irritating to them. In doing what he did, Orson Welles unwittingly placed himself on the radar of anti-communists who viewed any form of dissent with suspicion. While Welles may not have been openly blacklisted, he certainly navigated a career filled with political undercurrents. His innovative spirit and uncompromising vision sometimes brought him into the crosshairs of those who believed he treaded a dangerous path. In the end, his career was twice as difficult as it ought to be, and it was never really the same again. Dalton Trumbo. His story is nothing short of a Hollywood legend, and yet it's a tale etched in the darkest corners of the industry. Being a talented person with strong political views got him into trouble in the industry. As one of the most notorious members of the Hollywood 10, he became the embodiment of the blacklisting era and one of its most tragic figures. Trumbo's defiance in the face of the House Un-American Activities Committee, or HUAC, is the stuff of cinematic drama. When summoned to testify or betray his colleagues, he chose neither path. The result was a bitter exile from the industry he loved, a punishment for his refusal to compromise his principles. For years, he was denied the opportunity to directly contribute to the art form he cherished. But here's where the intrigue deepens. Dalton Trumbo, a name that had once been synonymous with screenwriting brilliance, found a way to defy the blacklist in secret. Under pseudonyms, he continued to craft some of his finest work. It's almost as if he was writing under the cloak of night, a hidden figure in the world of cinema. One of the most astonishing chapters of his mysterious career was his role in crafting the screenplay for Stanley Kubrick's epic classic, Spartacus. A film that would go on to become a monumental part of Hollywood history had the unseen hand of Trumbo guiding its words. It's a testament to his indomitable spirit and the enduring power of his talent. Even though exiled from the Hollywood limelight, Trumbo's writing prowess was in demand. In hushed tones and secret meetings, he was called upon to contribute his genius to various projects. His pen remained mightier than the blacklist that sought to silence him. Bertolt Brecht, a luminary of European theater, brought his distinctive voice to Hollywood with aspirations of leaving an indelible mark on the silver screen. However, his venture into the world of cinema would take a drastic and unwelcome turn, leaving a lingering shadow on his illustrious career. In 1947, Hollywood's studio system suddenly turned its back on Brecht. He was thrust into the tumultuous world of the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC. The mere mention of his name in the same breath as the HUAC sends shivers down the spine of many artists who endured those times. Initially, he, like many of his fellow artists, resisted the committee's demands. His refusal to testify reflected his defiance, his refusal to compromise his principles, even when faced with the unrelenting pressure of an industry that had once embraced him. However, the weight of the political climate eventually wore him down, and Brecht reluctantly took the stand to testify. It was a decision that would forever change the course of his career and reputation. To some, he had seemingly betrayed the principles he had once held dear. The aftermath of his testimony was a double blow for Brecht. Not only was he blacklisted by the Hollywood studio system, but he was also ostracized by the very artistic community that had once celebrated his brilliance. To them, his testimony was a betrayal, a concession to a system that had sought to silence dissenting voices. With his Hollywood dream shattered and his reputation tarnished, Brecht returned to Europe, where he lived out his remaining days. The man who had once been a beacon of artistic innovation found himself doing very little of the work that had made him famous. Lee Grant. His fate was a vivid illustration of the unpredictable and often unforgiving nature of the blacklist era. She was a young actress on the precipice of stardom when she garnered an Oscar nomination for her role in Detective Story. Her future seemed as bright as the Hollywood lights, but her outspoken criticism of the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, abruptly derailed her trajectory. In a swift and devastating turn of events, Grant found herself blacklisted. It was as if the rug had been pulled from beneath her feet. The vibrant promise of her career came crashing down, and her dreams of Hollywood stardom were seemingly extinguished. However, Lee Grant was not one to be easily defeated. She displayed remarkable resilience and determination. After a decade in the shadows of the blacklist, she made a triumphant return to acting. But what makes her story even more intriguing is how she transformed her career. Grant transitioned into documentary filmmaking, carving a niche for herself in a realm that allowed her to express her creativity and convictions. Yet the question lingers, what could have been had she not been blacklisted for those 12 long years? Even Lee Grant herself hinted at the heavy toll the blacklist had taken on her career. She acknowledged that starting over when Hollywood stars were already in descent was no small feat. The lost time, the missed opportunities, and Lee Grant's Hollywood journey is a vivid illustration of the unpredictable and often unforgiving nature of the blacklist era. Lee Grant's story is yet another clear example of how the blacklist era could stall or redirect careers, but it also underscores the enduring spirit of artists who refuse to be silenced. Her journey, marked by both hardship and resilience, showed that even in the face of adversity, talent and determination can triumph over political adversity. Charlie Chaplin. He was the comedic genius who had already left an indelible mark on Hollywood, but then he found himself at a crossroads in the 1950s when his career was in its twilight years, and he had already gifted the world with some of the greatest films ever made. But it was during this period that he was unexpectedly called before the House Un-American Activities Committee, a pivotal moment that would shape the final act of his career. Chaplin, with his trademark aloofness, faced the committee. He didn't bend to their demands or expectations. Instead, he maintained that he was first and foremost a filmmaker, not a political activist. He was a man who had entertained the masses with his iconic tramp character, not one who sought to influence the world through political means. Yet, despite his nonchalant demeanor, the consequences of his encounter with the HUAC were far-reaching. Chaplin, a British-born actor and director who had called the United States home for years, was suddenly confronted with an unwelcome ultimatum. The moment he returned to the U.S., he would be arrested immediately. It was a harsh sentence for a man who had contributed so much to the world of cinema. The exile that followed forced Chaplin to remain in his home nation, away from the Hollywood lights where he had once shone so brightly. The possibility of more comedy magic on the silver screen in his final years was forever lost. And even though he was already successful up till that point, he couldn't go farther than that anymore. It became a clog in the wheel of his career progress. Dashiell Hammett, the literary luminary whose words breathed life into the world of film noir, was a master of his craft. His stories, drenched in dark intrigue and suspense, became the foundation for some of Hollywood's most iconic films, including the Humphrey Bogart classic, The Maltese Falcon. Hammett's influence extended beyond the written word. He even lent his talents to penning screenplays. Yet Hammett's illustrious career took a tumultuous turn, one marked by the political turmoil of the era. His affiliations with certain political groups and his willingness to stand by his convictions became a double-edged sword. It was this allegiance that drew the attention of the House Un-American Activities Committee. In 1953, Hammett found himself in the unsettling position of testifying before the HUAC. The ramifications were swift and severe. Hollywood, the same industry that had celebrated his work, turned its back on him. The blacklist loomed over him, darkening his prospects and casting a long shadow over his career. Hammett's descent into poverty in the later years of his life was a stark reminder of the price he paid for his beliefs and his uncompromising stance in the face of political pressure. The man who had once stood at the pinnacle of success as a writer was now a casualty of the blacklist, left to grapple with the harsh consequences of a political climate that stifled artistic expression. Lardner Jr. In the heart of the tumultuous era known as the Hollywood Blacklist, a group of defiant individuals did the unthinkable by boldly airing their political opinions, even if it landed them in hot water. Among these courageous non-cooperators, one figure shone brightly: Lardner Jr., a screenwriter of exceptional renown whose career would be forever altered by his unwavering commitment to principle. In the glittering realm of cinema, Lardner had crafted his own legend. His name had become synonymous with quality, his words breathing life into stories that captivated audiences. The pinnacle of success in the world of screenwriting seemed within his grasp. However, destiny had a different plan, one marked by a defining moment that would haunt and shape his legacy. Summoned before the infamous House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, Lardner faced a decision that would define him. He refused to yield, steadfastly opposing the committee's demands. His defiance was palpable, either through his refusal to testify or his answers that defied the committee's expectations. It was a choice that would seal his fate, forever altering the course of his life. The consequences were swift and harsh. Lardner found himself in the grim throes of imprisonment, the price of his unwavering spirit. A darker chapter had never been written, and many would have crumbled under such duress. But Lardner's resilience, a testament to his indomitable will, would not be extinguished. Then, in a triumphant return, the spotlight briefly found its way back to Lardner in 1970. His screenplay for the iconic Mass *H granted him a glimmer of the success he had once enjoyed. It was a moment of redemption, a return to the artistic heights he had once scaled. However, the zenith of his career that existed before the stand against the HUAC proved elusive. Lardner Jr.'s story shows the enduring power of conviction and the profound sacrifices individuals made during the politically charged climate of the blacklist era. Jane Fonda. It is one thing to be a great actress. It is another to be a dogged and defiant personality off-screen, to be someone who uses her platform and fame to push positive change, and Fonda was fond of speaking up about things that mattered to her. But she may not even have discovered that part of her when she was giving brilliant performances on screen. Producers and directors loved her as she would always deliver on her roles. But then came the tumultuous 1960s and the Vietnam War, a conflict that would forever alter the course of Fonda's career. The actress, known for her beauty and grace, transformed into an outspoken activist against the war. Her stand, though principled, would prove to be a divisive and polarizing one. Journeying into the world of activism was a bold move. She used her fame and influence to voice vehement opposition to a war that had fractured the nation. Her controversial visit to North Vietnam, where she was photographed sitting on an anti-aircraft gun, became an enduring image of protest. It was a stark act of defiance against her own country's involvement in the war. At first, the support for Fonda's political stance was evident. She was hailed as a champion of the anti-war movement, a voice of the people. But as the war dragged on and her actions grew more controversial, the tides began to turn. Her image, once one of Hollywood's brightest stars, began to tarnish. The backlash was swift and severe. Some saw her actions as unpatriotic, a betrayal of her own nation's troops. Fonda's brave stand became a contentious point in the national discourse, with critics labeling her Hanoi Jane. Her public persona was under siege, and Hollywood, an industry that had once embraced her, started to withdraw its support. Roles in the entertainment industry became increasingly elusive. Casting directors and producers, wary of the controversy surrounding Fonda, hesitated to offer her the opportunities she had once enjoyed. The studios, like the public, were divided, and her career began to wane. As the war came to an end, Fonda's Hollywood journey was in tatters. The roles that had once been plentiful were now scarce, and the support that had once been unwavering had eroded. Her career, once full of promise and acclaim, had been forever altered by her principled stand against the Vietnam War. But in the end, was Jane affected? Of course she was. But did she care? Absolutely not. She knew that it was better to be brave and defiant in the face of oppression than to cower behind it. The Hollywood star who had once shone so brightly found themselves in the shadows, their careers forever changed by her unwavering commitment to their beliefs. Roseanne Barr, brash, fearless, funny, sarcastic, and beautiful. These are not the typical features you'd find in a Hollywood star in the late 1980s, but Roseanne was not just any Hollywood star, she was a different version. In the late 1980s, Roseanne Barr, a brash and fearless comedian, emerged as a promising talent in the world of stand-up comedy. Her humor, a unique blend of sarcasm and wit, resonated with audiences. It was this appeal that paved the way for her own sitcom, Roseanne, which premiered in 1988. Roseanne was a groundbreaking show in many ways. It was a gritty, working-class family sitcom that delved into real-life issues, reflecting the struggles of everyday Americans. The show was a massive hit, and Roseanne Barr herself became a household name. For years, her career flourished, and her sitcom was a celebrated staple of American television. However, as the years went on, Barr's public persona began to change. Her political beliefs and outspoken nature took center stage. She became an ardent supporter of Donald Trump, which placed her in a political landscape that was increasingly polarized. Her controversial tweets and statements on social media were met with both support and condemnation. The tipping point came in 2018 when Barr posted a particularly offensive tweet that was deemed racist and offensive. The backlash was swift and severe. Her show, a revival of Roseanne, was canceled by ABC, the network that had once celebrated her as a star. The decision to pull the plug on the show was as much a matter of principle as it was a business move. Networks and sponsors were unwilling to associate with such controversy. In the end, Roseanne Barr's transformation from a beloved comedian and actress into a controversial political figure had significant consequences for her career. Her show, once a symbol of working-class America, was abruptly canceled due to the political controversy she had courted. The fallout was a vivid reminder that in the world of entertainment, even the most successful careers can be irrevocably altered by one's political beliefs and public behavior. Roseanne Barr's story is one of stark contrasts, marked by the meteoric rise of her sitcom, only to be brought crashing down by her controversial political stance. It serves as a poignant example of the interplay between celebrity, politics, and the consequences that can befall those who court controversy. From the Hollywood 10 to Jane Fonda and Roseanne Barr, each represents a unique chapter in the saga of careers derailed by politics. The Hollywood 10, led by figures like Dalton, Trumbo, and Lardner Jr., chose defiance over compliance, enduring the harrowing consequences of blacklisting to safeguard their principles. As you might already imagine, this is no small feat. In the golden days of Hollywood, breaking into the industry was twice as hard as it is today. Therefore, every actor, writer, or producer did their best not to jeopardize what they had going. But in the face of their principles being tested, the Hollywood 10 stood their ground, knowing fully well it could well end their careers. There is a lot to learn from their stories. In the end, this all goes to show that we might have seen their entertainment side on the silver screen, but behind the curtains, they were dogged individuals who hold their thoughts and opinions highly. We can see that some of them were activists, others held strong political opinions, a far cry from what the world thought of them. However, these people may have had their lives ruined due to politics and their unwavering determination to stand their ground.